Week number 4 is just a few hours away from kicking off on Thursday Night Football, and in today's video, I'm going to help you guys set your lineups at the tight end position. We are going to be going in depth through every single matchup on the week, from Thursday Night Football tonight all the way up until the doubleheader on Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I think you should start or sit the tight ends in all of those games, as well as how I believe the tight ends will finish by the end of the week. Before we can get into things, though, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you don't have been enjoying, so please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with Thursday Night Football tonight. The Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Trey McBride is a must-start tight end every single week, and that is exactly why you drafted him as highly as you did. 3 straight top 12 showings and 2 of 3 games inside the top 6 to start off the season for McBride. Last week in Santa Clara up against the 49ers, he had 5 receptions on 8 targets for 43 yards, and by God, I couldn't believe it, the man scored a touchdown. We joke every single week on here about how McBride is allergic to the end zone, but last week he got past his fear of going into the end zone and scored a touchdown. It is actually crazy how reliable McBride is, even though he barely ever actually scores touchdowns. With Marvin Harrison Jr. having a strong case of not being able to catch the footballitis, McBride should see around 7 to 10 targets here in the best tight end matchup for the tight ends in terms of points allowed per game. So you got to be feeling real nicey about Trey McBride. I got him as my tight end 1 on the week. Now, the Seattle Seahawks use 4 tight ends on a weekly basis, which in short order means that none of these guys are startable. Barner, in my opinion, is the guy most likely to see multiple targets in any given game, but at the end of the day, with just 12 total targets to the tight ends combined through the first 3 weeks of the season, and with a combined less than 100 receiving yards, no need to ever play any of the Seahawks tight ends. Next up, we move to Dublin, Ireland, with the cold like Minnesota Vikings going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Set your clocks, and more importantly, just set your lineup early so you don't have to wake up early to watch this one, to watch Carson Wentz versus Aaron Rodgers. Now, TJ Hawkinson came alive last week with Carson Wentz under center after back-to-back duds with JJ McCarthy. Wentz lifted Hawk up dirty dancing style as the tight end number 5 up against the Bengals. 5 receptions on 6 targets for 49 yards and a touchdown, with Jordan Addison getting re-injected into this offense following his suspension for his wet, reckless charge, which is the feeling that my wife gets once she realizes how good my fantasy teams are. Ultimately, Addison returning could be a dagger into Hawkinson's heart, so I am a little bit worried, but I will stay the path of starting him and rank him as a top 12 tight end. For most people, he is clearly going to be in your tight end spot, especially up against the Steelers defense that allows the second most points to tight ends on a weekly basis. I get he definitely feels risky. He doesn't feel very safe, but I do have him inside of the top 10. Now, the Steelers utilize both Jonnu Smith as well as Pat Freiermuth a ton in terms of snaps. Last week, Freiermuth played 70% of the snaps up against the Patriots in Foxborough, and Jonnu played 83%. Both had 3 targets. If for some reason you had to play one of these guys, I would lean with Jonnu Smith, but based on what we have seen this season, there is no need to play either guy in a mid-range matchup for tight ends up against the Vikings. Next up, we got the beginning of the 1 p.m. slate. The left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders at the Atlanta Falcons. Without Jaden Daniels, Zach Ertz's fantasy value fell apart like that Post Malone song. 3 of 3 for 38 yards up against the Raiders with Mariota under center last week. But that was also a weird game script. Wasn't a close game, sure. If you were a box score watcher, you didn't watch the game, you might have been like, wow, that was kind of close, but it was really just a blowout, and they didn't really need to utilize a guy like Zach Ertz heavily. Jaden Daniels said himself that he is good to go, but the status of him playing is up to the doctor, so we'll see what happens. Ultimately, with the tight end position being so shaky, being so volatile, even if Mariota is in again, I would roll him out there, even though this is the worst matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. But when you actually look into things, though, that's a little bit fraudulent because they faced Cade Otton, TJ Hawkinson when he wasn't involved at all, and then last week, Jatavion Colonel Sanders. So those guys getting locked up really isn't all that crazy. Ertz is a low-end tight end 1. Now, Kyle Pitts came out the gate looking great like every single one of Adam Sandler's wives whenever he's in a movie as the tight end number 7. Since then, he has just been pretty mid and hasn't even cracked 10 PPR points since. He is still involved with 5+ targets every single week, so I think full-on panicking on Pitts is a little bit foolish, but also penciling him in as a lock to finish inside the top 12 is also a little bit stupid. This is a good matchup for tight ends as they allow the 8th most points on a per-game basis to tight ends, so even with some piss poor quarterback play, Pitts is still a high-end tight end number 2. Moving next to the New Orleans Saints at the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills have proven to be a tough matchup for tight ends thus far this season, but it's important to put things into context. Just like we did with the last matchup. Week 1, they go up against Mark Andrews, who was ice cold through the first 2 weeks of the season. Then they go up against rookie tight end Mason Taylor in Week 2 up against the Jets, and they followed that up with playing the Dolphins in Week 3, whose tight end 1 was Tanner Conner. Who the fuck is that guy? Which is probably what a lot of you guys think when you hear his name, right? I'll give them the credit for shutting down those tight ends, but they haven't faced a tight end of the caliber of Juwan Johnson yet. 3 straight 11+ point finishes and inside of the top 9 in all games at tight end with 8+ targets every single game. I get the Saints offense blows more than a trumpet player, but Johnson has been immune to that. Still a locked and loaded top 10 option weekly and in this matchup. Now, when it comes to the Bills tight end room, you will see all of Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox one time if you're with me, as well as Jackson Hawes throughout the whole game. And they're all probably going to play 40-ish +% of the snaps, which has been the case over the last 2 weeks. Kincaid's outlook has been great even with this tight end by committee approach from the Buffalo Bills. Tight end 4 in Week 1 up against the Ravens, tight end 19 in Week 2 at the Jets, and tight end 4 last week up against the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. In that game, he had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 66 yards and a touchdown. With this being a solid matchup for tight ends, the upside is far too high to ignore it. While they have a lot of pieces on this offense and Allen doesn't truly just lock into one guy, Kincaid has seen a touchdown in 2 of 3 games, so ranking him inside the top 12 at this point makes perfect sense, so I got him inside of the top 11. Next up, we got the Cleveland Browns at the Detroit Lions. Now, David Njoku has been a very big disappointment through the start of the season. He has yet to be truly terrible. Shout out to Mercadurka. So you can't necessarily sit him, but he also hasn't been good enough to where you're actually happy that you have him in your lineup. The targets have been there, so maybe things will start to go his way, but as of right now, he's just in that fringe tight end 2 range. Hopefully this top end matchup for tight ends up against the Lions gives Njoku some more luck. His luck turns around and he has a better game. Now, Harold Fannin saw 9 targets in Week 1, and after that, he has seen 9 total targets through the last 2 games. This matchup up against the Packers proved to be difficult for Fannin last week as his performance was the worst of his young career. Just like Njoku, you're not feeling great about him, but he is still in that fringe tight end 2 range. Despite the Lions and the Ravens scoring 68 total points, one off of being very nice, I like, with 69, with the Lions winning 38-30, Laporta had a below average day, going 4 for 4 like he was at Wendy's for 33 yards as the tight end 22. This may be a frustrating season just like last year out of Laporta, as he has just 4 targets in back-to-back games, but ultimately when an offense is as good as the Lions, you kind of just got to trot Laporta out there as he could score a touchdown or 2 in any given game. Not super excited about him as like a top 5 option, but he still does crack the top 12. Next up, we got the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans. Now, Cam Ward is banged up with a ankle/calf, so we have to assume he plays. I'm going to assume he plays. But that is something to follow. Chig Okonkwo is right on the cusp. He's knocking on the door of becoming start-worthy. As of right now, he's my tight end 19, meaning if he was one spot up at the tight end 18, I would have listed him as a starter. So if you are in a pickle right now and you have to start him, assuming that Cam Ward plays, I am not going to be super opposed to that. Last week, he looked great against the Colts. 5 receptions on 6 targets for 66 yards, and he has received 6 targets in 2 out of 3 games of the season. The problem with Chig is that he's always had the ability, right? He's always had the ability to have the big games. He's always flashed like it's Mardi Gras multiple times throughout his career, but the consistency just has not been there. The consistency just simply has not been his thing. And as Ward gets more comfortable, I think Chig could enter the weekly start-worthy range, but as of right now, he is a sit. But again, he's on the cusp of being a start. Dalton Schultz would be startable if the Texans offense was able to produce better, but we simply aren't in that scenario right now. Even with 5+ targets in 2 of 3 games, he has yet to score 9 fantasy points. So while I do think Schultz is a talented tight end, and while this is a fine enough matchup for tight ends in the mid-range, I just don't see the upside being super high for Schultz, so I would prefer to sit him. Moving now to game number 7, we got the Carolina Panthers at the New England Patriots. Before we break down this game in depth, as well as the rest of the games at the tight end position, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, you receive a free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as if you do a pick'em for $5, you receive an additional $50 in bonus funds. How the pick'em works on Underdog is incredibly simple. You pick at least 2 players, they're higher or they're lower. If your picks hit, you get paid. The more picks you put in, they all have to hit, the higher the payout is. So make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description. Now, Jatavion Colonel Sanders is week to week with a ankle sprain, so that makes Tommy make that ass tremble, the tight end number 1, until he can return. Tremble is a fine tight end, but with the Panthers offense essentially giving the ball to just Hubbard and Tet every single fucking play, I will not get cute and play Tremble here in a below average matchup for tight ends against the Patriots. Now, tons of people panicked after Hunter Henry shit the bed up against the Dolphins in week 2. There were people talking about, Nick, should I drop Hunter Henry? And my answer to that was, fuck no, baby. I stayed the course through and through, and would not allow one down game to make me panic on a guy that had 8 targets in week 1 up against the Raiders. This proved to be a smart decision as he ripped the Steelers defense apart like that gorilla did to SpongeBob in that creepy ass episode from the early 2000s. Tight end 1 with 8 receptions on 11 targets for 90 yards, and not one, buy one, get one free for Mr. Henry, because that motherfucker scored 2 touchdowns in that game. With the tight end position being so volatile, so shaky weekly, I will continue to rock with the tight end that has shown off the ability to be a target hog inside an offense that needs pass-catching weapons due to the inability of any of the types of wide receivers that they have to actually step up consistently. With this being a top 8 matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis, Hunter Henry belongs atop the top 8 this week. Next up, we got the LA Superchargers at the New York Football Giants. Now, Theo Johnson is dealing with a toe injury, and it is up in the air on if that affects his ability to go on Sunday or not. Whether he plays or not, though, doesn't fucking matter for fantasy. He has yet to score more than 7.4 points and has 2 games with 2 or fewer points. Hopefully, Dart can jumpstart this offense, but even if Johnson is in, pause, no need to play him, and if he is out, Bellinger will be the tight end 1 who, guess what? Spoiler alert, you also would not want to play. For the Chargers, Gadsden made his debut last week and had 5 receptions on 7 targets for 56 yards. Round of applause, solid debut for a tight end on 26% of the snaps. So if his snaps increase with how good this Chargers offense is, I will be interested in him. But with a 1-game sample size on, again, 26% of the snaps, I would not feel good rolling him out there. Next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Without Mike Evans, we should see Cade Otton carve out a larger role in this offense. With that said, though, even with him playing 86+% of the snaps in every single game of the season, he hasn't even logged a single point in 2 out of the 3 games, including last week up against the Jets. Match his poor performance with the Eagles being a bottom 3 matchup for tight ends. I want to see Otton do something before I can actually start him. For Dallas Goedert, I have been very pleased and honestly shocked with the production of Goedert when healthy this season. Both games he has played, he has been a top 14 option. Now, last week was more of a lucky 10-plus point performance, as he didn't actually do anything outside of scoring that long touchdown, but those points count, and we can't just take them away from him, right? Can't just be like, because he didn't have that big catch, he would have been a 0. He had the big catch, right? Just 2 targets last week, though, up against the Rams, and he had 7 in week 1 up against the Cowboys. At the end of the day, Goedert is a start-worthy asset in a great offense, but he is just as much of a risk as the other pass catchers in this offense, as they can win games by not doing a lot passing the ball offensively. So in a bad matchup for tight ends, Goedert is in the tight end 2 fringe start range. Next up, we got the "This is our Colts, this is our team, we bleed blue" at the Los Angeles Rams, the kickoff of the 4 p.m. slate Eastern Standard Time. The better Tyler in this matchup is Tyler Warren for the Colts, top 7 tight end in both of his first 2 games. Last week was not very hot for Warren, though. 3 receptions on 5 targets for 38 yards as the tight end 23 up against the Titans. The Rams matchup is middle of the road for tight ends on a per game basis, so you do have to feel good about a bounce back here. And Warren has just been a clear safety blanket for Daniel Jones, so I love Tyler Warren because he makes me happy as a top 5 tight end option. Tyler Higbee appears to be the clear tight end 1 here on the Rams, outsnapping Davis Allen in every single game, but with Kobe Parkinson getting work as well, this is a 3-headed tight end room that typically ends terribly for all guys. No need to ever play the guessing game here. Clearly going to sit them all because, sure, Higbee is a solid red zone option, but when you have Devontae Adams, when you have Kyron Williams, and when you have Pookie Bear, Puka Nacua, you don't need to start Tyler Higbee, and you don't need to throw him the ball in the red zone either. Next up, we got the Duval Jacksonville Jaguars at the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the Jaguars offense actually gives me heartburn to watch. This shit is more frustrating than trying to do math once they started adding letters into the equation. Even with all these frustrations and Trevor Lawrence being straight up ass, shout out to Violet Myers, Strange appears to be a valid dart throw tight end option. Last week up against the Texans, he was 6 of 7 for 61 yards. 6-7 for 61 yards as the tight end 7. There is clear risk here due to Lawrence's play in this offense as a whole, but with the 11th best matchup for tight ends, I'll risk it here in the tight end 2 range. Jake Tongs is the tight end 1 in this offense with George Kittle me Timbers on IR, but has received 3 targets in every single matchup, so there really isn't much room for him to get more than that. Unless he scored a touchdown, then he will frankly finish probably outside of the top 20, which has been the case so far. Now, if for some reason Juwan Jennings can't go and Ricky Pearsall can't go, right? If it's like DEFCON 1, maybe then you throw him out there. But he scored in week 1 against Seattle, and he was still the tight end 16. Didn't score in weeks 2 or 3 as the tight end 23 and 36. And even with his tight end teammate, Luke Farrell, seeing less work in week 3, not recording a single metric, Pong still didn't perform, so I am not interested at all, even with how strong the 49ers can be. Moving now to the Baltimore Ravens at the Kansas City Chiefs. After getting fucked directly in the ass by Mark Andrews in week 1 and 2, I told everyone I was done with this motherfucker, and he was getting banished to Azkaban. He's going to the bench. This normally puts your player on notice. They can tell that a lot of people around the globe are unanimously benching you. They feel bad. They're like, oh no, I'm on the bench. I got to start doing something. And that is exactly what happened on Monday Night Football up against the Lions. 6 of 6 for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. Likely could return from the foot injury, which would throw a real wrench into this scenario. But even if he does return, my expectation is that he would be limited. Shout out to Russell Wilson early on. I am hesitant to jump for joy after one big game, as he has been so bad through the first 2 weeks. So he is still in the tight end 2 range, especially with the Chiefs being solid against tight ends. But he is still start worthy as a fringe tight end too. Kelsey has been a top 10 tight end in 2 of 3 games so far, so Mr. Swift hasn't really looked like his old self, but he is involved enough in the offense to have a big game in him. In a matchup that could be the highest scoring game of the week, Kelsey should certainly be in your lineup if you drafted him, especially with the Ravens being the 7th best matchup for tight end, so he's in that tight end one top 12 range. Next up, we got the Chicago Bears at the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Now, Cole Kmet is going through a groin injury, and Colston Loveland is dealing with a hip injury. Kmet seems pretty likely to play. Loveland not as locked in. If both play, they are both unstartable because they cannibalize off one another. If Loveland misses, if you want to take the shot on Cole Kmet, go ahead, but I would still prefer to stay away. For Brock Bowers, he appears to not be limited at all by the knee injury that he's been dealing with since week 1 up against the Patriots. His production has been far from ideal based upon where you drafted him, but he hasn't been a complete flop. Top 14 tight end in every single game, and I think there are much brighter days ahead. 8 targets in 2 of 3 games. The Bears are a good matchup for tight ends on a weekly basis, so, regardless of the game, you're going to start Brock Bowers, so I got him as a clear top 5 option. Next up, we move to, cause you waited all day for Sunday night, the Green Bay Packers at the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's World. Interesting tidbit of information, Micah Parsons still has his suite in Jerry's World because the team wouldn't refund it. Very, very funny. Ferguson is dealing with a knee and elbow injury and was limited in practice on Wednesday. So while that isn't great, it would appear to be nothing to worry about. Last week, he played coming off an injury and played 88% of the snaps, so I'm not going to panic. 3 receptions on 4 targets for Tucker Kraft in Cleveland. Sure, the team has to hang their head in shame, Game of Thrones style after, you lose to the fucking Cleveland Browns, but if there ever was a defense to bounce back, get the game right, get the team going right, it would be up against the Cowboys. This is a mid-range matchup for tight ends, but based on how this should be a higher scoring game, and based on how Kraft has looked this season, he's a clear top 5 option. Without CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson may be the number 1 target on this team. Even with Lamb there in week number 2 against the Giants, the guy had 9 receptions on 12 targets for 78 yards. Last week against the Bears, 13 of 14 for 82 yards, back-to-back games as a top 3 tight end, and you just have to feel fantastic about Fergie, and you will feel even better when you learn that the Packers allow the 6th most points on a weekly basis to tight ends. Ferguson, just like Kraft, is a locked and loaded top 5 option. Next up, we got the first of 2 Monday Night Football shitters, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The New York Jumbo Jets at the Miami Dolphins. Facing the Dolphins defense is the 3rd easiest matchup for tight ends on a per game basis, which would be awesome if Mason Taylor was a key piece in this offense. Even with the offense being incredibly barren outside of Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson in terms of talent, Mason Taylor hasn't seen much action. Now, last week, he was 4 of 6 for 18 yards, so maybe if Tyrod plays again, we see some solid floor for Mason Taylor like last week, but even that isn't a guarantee, so I'm not going to get cute even in a great matchup and start Taylor here. Darren Waller is expected to return this week, which would be cool, honestly, because I expected that he would never even touch the field. If he does play, I wouldn't expect anything close to a full workload. Even if he doesn't play, Tanner Conner is unstartable. So the tight end position as of right now in Miami is irrelevant in fantasy. Maybe Waller figures it out. He looks great. Shout out to Tony Tiger. And he becomes a startable asset as the season goes on. But as of right now, sit them all. Final game here, the Cincinnati Bengals at the Denver Broncos. Just a complete and utter flop like a fish out of water. Shout out to the fish tight end, Adam Troutman, for the tight end position. Evan Ingram is listed as questionable, and even if he does play, I'm not going to be playing him. I want to see more out of Ingram before I actually play him. If he is out, Adam Troutman may have lost his spot to Lucas Krull. None of these tight ends have done anything in Denver this season. Now it starts. Now, Noah Fant is in a revenge game. He has outscored Gesicki every single week, so I will now put Fant in the graphic, but even with him outscoring Gesicki, neither guy has been super relevant. Week 1, Fant was the tight end 9, but after that, nothing but flops. I really just don't have a good feeling about this offense at all. Shout out to Han Solo without Joe Burrow, so I'm sitting them. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you guys uppercut that subscribe button like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Check out all the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. I love you a long time. Hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy.